All right, we are back with our amazing guest on this magical episode where we can learn more about Africa. I'm so excited to have Jonathan Ainskoff and John Daniel Dunn with us. They are private safari guides in Africa. And Africa is such a magical place and a place that is on so many people, I would say the majority of people's bucket list, but they are here to guide us about all things Africa to make sure if you're booking your trip that you are doing it right. So welcome to the show, Jonathan and John. How are you guys?
Thank you very much, Madison. Appreciate you having us on.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I'm so excited to have you guys on because you're talking to somebody who wants to go to Africa, has never been to Africa. I don't know when to go, but like I want to hear before we go into that, like how did you guys become private safari guides?
Well, yeah, well, look, it really does stem from growing up on the continent. I'm born and raised in Bulawayo in Zimbabwe, a little landlocked country in the southern part of the continent. And just pretty much spending weekends out and about, people would say it heading off into the bush. And we have natural parks close by. Um, so yeah, very much a case of being out in the wild from a young child, essentially, is kind of what instills it in you from a very young age.
So when you
Yeah,
were
we're lucky. We're very lucky to be Africans in that respect, growing up amongst it. I think we both come from farming communities. My mom's side of the family are Northern Rhodesian or Zambian. So school holidays would spend fishing on the Zambezi River and elephants wandering through the camp and lions calling at night and you camping under the stars. And because I grew up in Johannesburg and Jonathan and I both from cities, but we had so much early exposure. At 23, I dropped my finance degree, went into the bush and never looked back. 20 years later, I'm still doing it. It's been a journey, but an incredible journey.
Very fortunate.
No, it's amazing because it's, like I grew up in America, I grew up in Colorado, and it's like yeah, obviously everybody has nature but all you really saw was like deer, maybe some people saw a bear or a mountain lion. The animals that you guys have, that's the reason people come to see the magnificent, like the elephants. Like there's so much about elephants and the emotions they carry. Have you guys seen this? Like they're very similar to humans, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, they've got, kind of largest brain in the mammal kingdom. And you can really sense that when you've got a 15,000-pound animal standing next to your safari vehicle and you hear the rumblings from its chest as it's communicating to the rest of the family members. It's quite profound in some ways because it's raw. You're really living it and experiencing it with the animals. So I think that's very much a case of, just being part of the wild in a sense.
And sharing that ancestry, like, something like an elephant, all these big animals, they're so inextricably intertwined to our own journeys on this planet. And we often forget that, we're all mammals, humans are mammal. And you look at that elephant in the eyes, it's a sentient being. They've got families, they're matriarchs, they've got these very close bonds amongst their different generations. The matriarch teaches the young ones, just like our family structure system. And I see it, and so does John. You out there, you can draw parallels with every creature to what we have in these big cities, New York, jungle of its own, but all the same type of intricacies and nuances amongst the different species. They're sentient. There's some brilliant books I'll recommend to you. I gave to my clients yesterday, actually, about elephants. All of them. They're living their own lives in their own worlds, governed by their own senses. But these are millennia-old relationships, and man developed alongside them. So we've kind of lost that connection. And when you go to Africa, you really rediscover it, which is the magic.
So what do you think of somebody that goes on a safari? How do you feel that they change as a human?
Oh, that's a very good question. I'd say at the end of a trip, you're overcome with your senses. Because when you're in a bush and you're on the game vehicle, your eyes are constantly looking through, the foliage. Your ears are constantly listening to the chirrups and the call signs. And it's a sensory overload. And I think it really takes the journey back home and you're lying in your bed at night and you're listening to the sirens and the cars hooting to actually really appreciate the magic of Africa. And we use, the term magic, but it really is, because people find themselves reconnecting with nature in whatever way that may be with an individual. But you're stripped raw of, you're leaving behind the busy world. There's no access and no emails. There's a wonderful saying of you disconnect to reconnect. And it's just a lovely way also on various stages of, it can be hopelessly romantic, where you've got couples together sharing this experience for the first time. You've got multi-generational safaris where you've got grandparents to grandkids all sensing, the lion walking past your vehicle and getting a sense of scale. Or you've got groups of friends that are just looking to do something different. So there really is something for everyone out there.
And that connection, I think the major point, just to second that, the connection to nature. It's something, you can go to the Caribbean, take your family and your grandkids to the Caribbean or to Disneyland or, anywhere, and have that type of vacation. An African safari is like comparable to none of those. You're out on this vehicle, there's lions roaring at night, you're lying in your bed like, whoa, it's like Jurassic Park, hyenas out there answering them, hippos munching around your room. You're sitting around the campfire with your family at night with a lovely G&T, and the stars are just blankets of stars like you've never seen before. And then a shooting star comes ripping through the sky, and hippos are grunting and lions are calling, and you're just like, wow, I'm in this thing called nature, and from which I was born, but I've kind of become disconnected in a city, and here I am, feet on the soil, just immersed in it. And it's really, it gives you such a beautiful energy and feeling of connection. And to share that with your children and your grandchildren is something very special. Yeah.
So how do you guys feel, because this is what you do and you're so connected to nature? Do you feel mindset wise and just kind of like, because people will say like, oh, we're in the matrix, right? Like we're stuck in a thing, and we're, I'm in New York City, you guys are visiting, like it's a concrete jungle. And I tell people, as much as I love New York City, this is not normal. Humans are not meant to live in concrete jungles. They are meant to connect with nature. That is why they say, go outside. You can't do that in New York City. You'll get a disease. And stand barefoot, because we're connected to the ground. So how do you feel, like
100%.
You're a finance major? Like, how do you feel different if you had gone the finance route versus the lion route?
Madison, that's, the finance. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Johannesburg and went to quite a prestigious private school. So it really was for me a case of great expectations. I had a lot of pressure on me. I studied finance, first information. That was in 2000 when the internet exploded. That's when I finished high school at 18. But I'd always loved nature. My room was just clad with nature pictures and porcupine quills and warthog dust. I still have my VHSs. I'm sure John has got exactly the same that I collected. I still have my whole VHS cassettes of the first wildlife documentaries that are still today some of the most iconic, Eternal Enemies and Troubled Waters. But I felt like I couldn't pursue that because I guess of the privileged, prestigious environment I'd come from, that I had to be an engineer or a doctor or a trauma surgeon or a lawyer in order to placate the expectations. I did it. I was very unhappy. I failed everything, and I was pretty good academically. I just hated it. I just didn't want to be there. And at 23, I dropped that degree and went into the bush with a big company that's still very big today and beyond. My mother didn't speak to me for 8 months, but it was the best decision I ever made. I came back 10 years later and finished the finance degree, but still didn't find any joy in it. It's necessary for our capitalistic modern world, those kinds of qualifications, so necessary, and I respect the journeys of everyone that's done that. But I just found, and John is exactly the same, the calling is to share this passion, this love, this inherent joy, this understanding I have for this natural world and how it relates to us humans, us modern humans, because we're still very much in it, even if it's the matrix. You go out and look up at the sky and you're going to get it, or go for a walk through a forest, and you immediately reconnected into that earth that gave birth to us.
Yeah. It is. It's just nature is magical, and it's kind of like how we were designed, but it's just so amazing. Like I'm a religious person, so like God, it's like how he created like every single thing had a purpose, from the elephant to the human to the lion to the hippo. So we'll get into like the different animals. So the hippo is apparently supposed to be the most dangerous animal on the planet. Is that correct?
Well, yes. Look, in Africa, there are a couple of animals that you just grow up knowing they're the ones that you don't want to be around and you don't want to mess with.
So,
Okay.
you guys play Hungry Hungry Hippo as children? Remember that game?
Well, look, these wildlife interactions, these encounters that happen, and this human wildlife conflict, as villages grow in population size, as more humans start, venturing out, there's always going to be a point where your boundary of nature and boundary of man are going to collide. Unfortunately, hippos do get a bit of a bad rap. They're herbivores, so they leave the waters at night to go and graze. And on their return, if something's in their way, they're going to protect themselves. They don't feel comfortable out of water, so they'll charge, right? But the
So
same could be said
they
with
came out of water at night.
yeah, very much so. They'll come out, look, preferably at night. They feel a little bit more comfortable around that. But that's not to say that they don't come out during the day. But they come out and graze. They're big grazers, these wide brim mouths that are used to scoop up reeds and grasses across the ground. And the more time you spend in nature, the more nuances you start picking up on these animals' behaviors. Wow. And when you look at a safari, and especially the way that we plan the choreography, is we go into quite meticulous detail, depending on where you start, southern, eastern, what you're looking to get out of a safari. But one thing that's core is you can always see a change in people from the first day they go out on a drive to the last day. Your confidence is built, okay, because you know that you're sitting on a game vehicle and every other animal that's looking at you knows that the game vehicle is a safe, species to be around. Sometimes it's got one set of eyes, sometimes it's got 8 sets of eyes, but they don't see you as individual. You're just one object to them. And as long as you respect their boundaries, they'll respect yours. And, over time, throughout that safari journey, that 10, 12, 14 day, that last safari drive, whether it be the last evening and watching the sun go down or the last morning before you fly out, you can see there's people who the light bulb goes on, and they recognize and they appreciate the world that we live in. And I think that is always something just tremendous to see at the end of a trip.
100%, 100%. And dangerous animals, I mean, they're really, to be honest, I think the most dangerous animal out there, and the same with humans, is a female with her cubs, a woman with her children. It's universal. You don't go on foot around any lioness with her cubs or elephant or giraffe or buffalo. That answer's out there. Otherwise, the hippo, buffalo, all buffalo bulls, elephants in must, of course, elephant breeding herds. But yeah, women with their children.
Well, that's what they say. So what happens if you're driving in the vehicle and you come across a mother and her babies?
So in the vehicle, as Jonna just kind of touched on, you're totally safe. And it's extraordinary how close these animals get to the vehicles. You hardly need a lens. Come right up. They trust the vehicle. And that's what we both are so passionate conservationists and about. That's what really we do this for. A major part of it is to share this joy with humanity, but also to create these protected areas where there's no trophy hunting and there's no snaring, and it's photographic ecotourism. So over decades, over hundreds of years, these animals have learned to trust the vehicle. The mother trusts the vehicle, gives birth to a litter of cubs. They grow up from tiny little cubs around the vehicle. Then that breeds into the population exponentially. So you can literally, it's the pinnacle of wildlife viewing on the planet. You can drive into that little pride of lions, sit there, and the cubs will play around the vehicle, and you'll get great photos, and then you'll leave, and you don't stress them, you don't threaten them, you don't steal their food. So they're so trustful of the vehicles, and that really, that's magic. That's, as soon as you start hunting in an area, you'll lose that trust and you won't have that kind of wildlife viewing. So again, as a business, we select the areas that are heavily protected, no trophy hunting, no snaring, or limited, well-funded anti-poaching. A lot from the bed nights we put into those places, and it's all a very interconnected web. We rely on the anti-poaching, we rely on the aircraft, they rely on us to fill beds. It's one big system that creates this incredible, pristine wilderness area protected from modern man, that you are able to go and sit with wildlife in their natural habitat, and your presence of being there won't influence their behavior at all. That's the pinnacle.
Yeah.
Get in there, and they would have been doing exactly what they were doing, whether you're there or not. And that's special.
I feel like it's like when you go on this safari. I've never been. Sometimes, like, I'm thinking, I need to go on one, because you really you have a greater, as you were saying, greater appreciation of life, but also a more understanding of what life's actually about. I think sometimes we get lost in trying to obtain so much materialistic possessions, thinking that, oh, this is what life is about, is get more shit, make more shit, and it's really about growing your soul and connecting with nature and animals and other humans, and I love that you said, like, people, that you witness people change.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so you would recommend, like, if somebody, obviously go on a safari because it's beautiful, but if somebody's really just having a tough time and needs to get away, like, this is the thing. You guys have probably launched businesses. Like, having a breakdown, I'm going on a safari, and they're like,
yeah. Oh yeah. It's better than Burning Man. Better than Burning Man from that. You get into that nature,
Jonathan, let me tell you something. A man that goes to Burning Man can lose my number. A man that goes on an definitely take my number. There's a big difference.
There is a big difference. Yeah. It is just talking to that point of watching people change. I mean, we've had instances of people coming out, experiencing Africa, changing career paths, moving countries, and just having this, like, whole perspective of life flipped, because it's not about how much can I obtain, or, I'm just going to drive myself into the ground and one day I'm going to get a gold watch. Yeah. It shows you that appreciation of life, because also these animals that are living naturally in the wild, they live on nothing. When the drought hits, there's famine. When it's good weather and the rains come, it's in abundance. And you're watching these huge swings. And it's also always quite surreal. And it doesn't matter how many times you go on a drive where you're kind of sitting around, whether it be a pride of lions, a herd of elephants, and you realize that you're just a fraction of a moment in time. And these numbers are going to go up, these numbers are going to go down, and you're just privileged to be in the presence to witness it. It's very special.
100%. And you're just, I tell you, it really, people come and just reconnect with nature, because I think a lot of people do get sick in cities where you're in a concrete jungle, can't see the stars, it's noise, your nervous system is just on hyperdrive all the time. You weren't designed to deal with all these stimuli every day, all the time, pressure, stress, noise, traffic, commitments, pressure, deadlines. You get out into nature, and it's not only the stars and the fresh air and just the absolute release of your nervous system. It's also the space and time it gives you to reflect, to connect with family on those game drives, because there's long periods where you don't see anything, and it's just you all together on the vehicle, and you can chat and talk about life and around the campfire at night. But also, you're exposed to all the communities that still live very traditionally around the reserves, and they're fetching water every day. They're carrying it on their heads for miles. Every drop of water they use, they've got to go and fetch. They're washing their clothes in the river and watching out for crocodiles. There's no electricity. And you just go, wow, this is the same planet in 2025. There's Wall Street, and then there's that community on the Zambezi River, and they're living in the same time and place.
So, Jonathan, let me ask this question. Who do you think's happier?
Whoa, that's a big. I think happiness is so internal. I think it's a fleeting state that comes and goes, and I think it's something you really have to work towards. I think, it's something I've deliberated over for many years. I'm sure John has.
You know, I've never seen an unhappy person on a jet ski. Okay, but you can't ride a jet ski every day of your life.
Yeah, that's true. This is true. That's so okay. So I didn't. You guys are educating me. I know that there's areas of the world where there's tribes that like Sentinel Island, like you can't touch. You go near there, you'll be killed, right? And you'll kill them because they don't have the immune system to handle what we carry. So it's right that they defend their land and their tribe. So are these like like are they? Do they interact with people? Like
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
it was like old school living. So are they like the Amish of the US? Like they just didn't want to, you know what I mean? Like adjust to technology? Like I'm fascinated.
No, it's a case of, unfortunately, it was a huge portion of the population of Africa. Now, bear in mind, Africa's large. The United States can fit into Africa 3 times. Okay, it is a ginormous continent. There are 50 plus countries. Okay, there are thousands of languages. To give you an idea, Tanzania has got a population of about 80 odd million people, and they have 150 tribes
Oh,
just in one country. Okay. And that's not to say that they're cut off from the rest of the world. These are just tribes that have grown and developed over eons. Okay. That all have their own way of life. And now everybody is adapting to a modern way of life. And, up in Victoria Falls, there's the Jafuta Foundation that's run by friends of ours, Gail van Jaarsveld. And she does amazing work with both wildlife and with local communities. And it's the simple things. How do you get water storage or running water into a community and not have to do the 10, 15-mile walk to go and fetch water from a well? So she does amazing work of building wells within communities and homesteads to provide them with access. So when we talk about simple things, it really is the simple things in life. And, it's a vast percentage of the continent that live in a very basic way for no other reason than it's a developing continent.
But it is fascinating to go and visit them. You can visit all the tribes in Africa, totally safe, no diseases. You're gonna come out of there so enriched. You can visit all of them. And the ones that John is talking about, in Victoria Falls, we incorporate that into every one of our itineraries, where you take a break from safari and immerse yourself, go and see one of the 7 natural wonders of the world, the Victoria Falls, but then also go and experience the communities, the raw villages, the daily way of life, the collection of water, firewood, how they make their spinach and their white millet and grind up their grains. And you spend the morning with the communities in that village. You could do that anywhere in Africa. In East Africa, you got the Maasai, famous tribe. In Natal, you got the Zulus, Shaka Zulu. I spent years working there. You got so many different tribes scattered all over Africa, thousands of them. I mean, there's 54 countries in Africa. And as John says, it's enormous. Each tribe has its own language, its own culture, its own values, belief systems, histories. Some are passive, some are more aggressive, but you can visit all of them besides maybe some in the big forests of the Congo. I wouldn't go for a picnic in there. But the rest you can kind of visit happily. And it's a very enriching experience.
Yeah. And it's super safe as well. Yeah.
Do they work? They don't have traditional jobs. Their work is keeping the land and the community together. Is that
correct? Oh yeah. And you know what, funny enough, I mean, just in September, we were up in Victoria Falls, and we went to a local homestead that's run by a gentleman called Lovemore. And he was explaining how traditionally locals are now changing to what they're calling this modern era. And you can see there's this shift in dynamic from multiple ways. First part, religion. They've always grown up polygamists. They've had multiple wives. And that's a sense of, in your local community, should something happen to your brother's wife, you would marry her to bring her children and your nieces and nephews into your homestead to keep the family strong and going. And you wouldn't want somebody else or a competitive villager to marry, your brother's wife. So, but he says,
women.
hey, look, I mean, the progression now is, he was telling, Lovemore was telling us that nobody wants to marry more than one wife. Everybody wants one relationship. Okay. And he just said it's interesting to him because he looks at his grandparents and he looks at his grandkids. And she said in these few generations, he's seen the shift happening. So there's been a modern dynamic that has definitely been introduced to, not saying everywhere, but definitely in most villages around key kind of tourist attractions or developing cities. And it is a big shift. And that shift, there's always a side where you can see there's a respect for the wildlife, because everybody knows that photographic tourism creates ongoing revenue, ongoing employment, and that's vital. So when a company comes in and they take over a portion of land and they commit themselves to a 25 or 30-year lease, they're going to employ the locals in that area.
Yeah.
So that's why we're very specific on who we support, because we want to drive the fact that these key areas are locally driven. People coming out and spending 5 nights or 10 nights, what are the cases in safari, you're putting back into the local communities.
It's a really feel-good vacation too, because you realize, wow, there's a bigger picture here. I'm on vacation with my family, but I'm supporting all of these communities. Half of them are employed in the lodge, and they support all dependents over. The rest are subsistence farmers in these fields, particularly like when you go gorilla trekking, The first trek you do in the morning, you're walking through these big potato fields on that very rich, loamy, verdant, very volcanic soil that you slip in. You're going through, and there's an elephant track that came out of the forest, a forest elephant. There's a forest buffalo track. And these guys are up at sunrise with their hoes, and all the women, elderly. You're seeing an 80-year-old woman hoeing her field and getting rid of the weeds at sunrise, and you go, wow, this is a different way of life. And there's this rich aroma of eucalyptus that they're burning, and all the kids are so happy. You speak about happiness. Some of the happiest children I've ever seen were deep in the desert in Namibia. They were doing somersaults when they saw us. They just had these little loins on. We were on quad bikes. It was incredible. They didn't have any technology. They didn't know we were coming. And they came running out of their kraal and did these huge somersaults in this. I'll never forget it as long as I live. In the fading light, I just had these children doing somersaults. And then in Rwanda, they follow you. They follow your group. And they're running and they're waving and they're just, they're genuinely happy. But it's that connection to the people. And it's exactly what John was saying. It's a much bigger picture than just coming on safari or just coming on a vacation. You're supporting all the conservation, the anti-poaching. You're creating that safe space for all those animals and ecosystems to thrive, protecting it from forestry or farming or hunting. And you are supporting a whole chain of families, upskilling people, as well as creating incredible memories.
Yeah. So do they speak English? Like, can they understand you, the tribes?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
Very much so.
So has anyone ever asked them, like, hey, do you have any desire to, like, go into the modern world? Like, have technology and have...
John asks him that all the time. He's like, what are you doing here? You must be in the modern world. There's a city called New York. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, it's a very good question. And again, I'll go back to my conversation with Lovemore. And he was explaining how a local village and community takes care of themselves.
Yeah.
Husband and wife have children. The boys take care of the village. Okay. The girls take care of the people. And that is a natural progression until somebody marries and they will they live in the local community, okay, until they get to a point where they are given their own parcel of land by the chief. And then the firstborn is always off onto kind of their own journey, and they'll take over a section of land. The rest of the sons and the children will stay in the community and the village, and they'll all support each other. But Lovemore said, with the introduction of people wanting to go to the city, people wanting cell phones, there's no electricity in the village. Somebody might have a solar panel, but you can't have a cell phone because there's nowhere to charge it. So he said, what's happening now is there's a little bit of a natural progression where people get to an age and they say, I want to go to the city. I want to be in the city. I want to work. I want to have a job. I want to have a career. So it's a bit of a change in psyche. And I think that's just natural human progression, to be honest. Africa is still very much in developing stages, and it's phenomenal because everyone's at a kind of a slightly different, I'd say, part of their journey. And we're fortunate enough that we get to travel the continent and see it from south to east. No, it's magic.
So where do you guys? So your safaris go all over, but where do you live?
So I grew up in Johannesburg, born and bred, which is the biggest. It's the New York of Africa. It's the biggest city. It's the epicenter of commerce, founded on gold. Still got the deepest, richest gold mines on the planet. In Johannesburg, it's called the City of Gold, but similar history to San Francisco, but huge, about 10 million people, so the size of Chicago. And it's the epicenter of trade and commerce in Africa. South Africa we're both South African. The biggest economy, the Springboks. I don't know if you've heard about the Springboks. That's South African. That's our rugby team. But we both grew up in South Africa. Well, actually, you're Zimbabwean. Sorry, I speak for myself. Totally speak for myself. I grew up in Johannesburg and live in Cape Town now, which is a beautiful city. So, I'm kind of born and bred South African with a lot of exposure to Zambia. Jono, totally different, actually.
Well, JD's playing down Cape Town. Cape Town won the most beautiful city in the world award several years in a row. Okay, and it is gorgeous. You've got a combination of the rough Atlantic seaboard, beautiful Cape winelands, and this melting pot of cultures and traditions. So any start to a safari is well worth entering into Cape Town to get a feel for the continent before you move on. But I digress. I'm based in Johannesburg. I moved there in 2009, and I've just found it a magical city where everybody is so friendly. It's not often that everyone you come across is willing to assist and help. Our car guards, for example, if you're carrying bags on your way to the car, you've got a shopping trolley, they'll come to you, they'll grab your bags, they'll grab your trolley, they'll help you offload your groceries. Everybody is so friendly, and there's not many places around the world you get to experience that. But yeah, from a financial point of view, it's where the money is made. To be honest, if you look at it at the South African economy, that's where most of the wealth is generated. But for all intents and purposes, I can get a flight anywhere in the world. They're direct flights. There's 2 flights that come in from the States, from Atlanta and from Newark. They go into Cape Town, they go into Johannesburg. So it's just very convenient.
And the best weather. Johannesburg's got the best weather in the world, hands down.
You can only get a direct flight from Newark or Atlanta?
Yeah. So United...
Washington.
Yeah.
United and Delta. And that's post-COVID. We used to fly on Emirates and Qatar. After COVID, travel to Africa has become so easy and accessible. I literally have dinner in Cape Town Airport, 8 o'clock. I did this a few days ago, and I hopped onto my United flight, and I arrived in Washington, Dallas, 5 in the morning, hopped onto another flight, and arrived in Seattle that midday. I did that journey. So, it's so easy. And to land in Cape Town as travelers out of the US, it's magic, as Jono said. Straight into 3 nights of Table Mountain, Robben Island, the history, the penguin, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. You've got so much marine diversity, whales, penguins, seals, fishing harbors, some of the finest wine estates on the planet. Very similar to San Francisco. They've got Alcatraz, we've got Robben Island. It's hilly, it's beautiful, it's liberal. It's quite expensive to live in that Bay Area. We've got the Cape Winelands an hour and a half drive away. They've got Sonoma and Napa. It's like these 2 cities could be Siamese twins.
You're selling it very well.
San Francisco, it's liberal. You realize that city fell apart.
Yeah. So Cape Town didn't fall apart. It's still there.
You're like, no.
Yeah, sorry, I should have touched on that. It's semi-liberal.
That is so funny. Okay, so Wait, all right. So where Africa's huge, obviously. If somebody is listening from the States is listening to this and says, I want to go on an African safari, what's the best place to go out of? Like, is it Cape Town? Is it Johannesburg? Is it?
Well, that all depends on what type of safari you're going to have, right? And I think safari, when you're looking at how you plan it, comes down to a number of things. One being timetable. So what is nice about Southern Africa is we are opposing seasons. So your summer, our winter, winter is the best time to go on safari because the foliage is, less. It's easy to see the animals. They're all congregating around the last remaining water sources because we only get rain in the summer. So your wildlife viewing is off the charts. So that pairs really well with kind of your summer break or your fall kind of break.
Okay.
So time of year of travel is important. Secondly, how much time have you got to travel? Have you only got a week? Have you got 3 weeks? That's also going to come into play as to how do you plan the choreography of the destinations you go to maximize what you want to achieve. And then, which leads me into my next point of what do you want out of a safari? Are you there for the culture? Are you there for the community? Are you there for just the animals? We've got clients who say, I don't want to see the cities. Show me the bush. Get me out into the wild, and that's what I want to do. And sometimes if they're repeat clients, then you just choose one destination, like Botswana with the Okavango Delta. You've got this 800-mile long stretch of water where it floods into a desert that creates thousands of islands. And from one island to another, the environment is completely different. So you can spend 2 weeks just traveling one environment and one ecosystem, having different experiences at different camps. So again, when we put together these itineraries, we have Zoom calls like this. We have face-to-faces with the client because we want to know, what do you want out of this? And what are you looking to get? Because that's how we make sure that we pair together an experience that's kind of just going to blow you out the water.
And to kind of narrow it down, there's East Africa, there's 2 circuits really that are the traditional circuits. Like everything Jono said, spot on. We don't package safaris at all. We feel like it's such a big trip, takes so much time, energy, effort, 2 weeks away from your desk or work. It's expensive to fly across. That 12 nights on the ground is like the optimal safari length. And then you're flying on either side. And you've got 2 regions. Africa's enormous. We don't really go into West Africa, but Gabon's amazing, Chad. The 2 quintessential African safari regions are Southern Africa, South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, or East Africa, which is Rwanda, Tanzania, Kenya, Zanzibar, and Uganda, up on the equator, Seychelles. That's gorilla trekking and great migration. Those are the highlights. Southern Africa is like, I think the perfect first safari is Southern Africa, Cape Town, Victoria Falls. Got all those beautiful cities. You got a full spectrum of wildlife from African wild dogs to rhinoceros, lion, leopard, cheetah, everything in between, the big 5, just a plethora of species. It's logistically quite easy. Then you go to East Africa maybe for your second safari and do the gorilla trekking and the great migration, which is a totally unique experience. And that's way up on the equator. So that's like the flight I did yesterday from Washington to Seattle. It's the same. You fly from Cape Town to Rwanda. It's a 5-hour flight. So they're very different regions.
Yeah.
But those are the 2 quintessential safari circuits.
That's amazing. Okay, so what's the name of the company that you guys are private? It's Ainskoff, right?
Yeah. So it's called the Malcolm Ainskoff Collection, founded by Malcolm, my uncle, in 1992. Yeah, a little punt there. But
Nice.
yeah, he kind of started out in 1992 and realized that we've got this beautiful continent. And being the generous person he is, he started out of his slogan has always been share Africa with pride. And it's a case of we want people to experience how fantastic this experience with both people, communities, cultures, wildlife is. But you want to do it in a very special way that kind of, ties a golden thread from one destination to another.
Yeah.
So in that essence, I think he's just carried it through for the past 30, 33, 34 years now.
All business. And on a word of mouth business, it's incredibly successful, because our clients become friends. Really, we want an event tomorrow night. We've got 120, 140 clients coming in from all over the US that have become friends over the decades, and we keep in touch with our clients. They really become part of the Malcolm Ainskoff family, and that's why it's a collection. It's such a personal business, and we're super attentive on the ground. We're all based on the ground, so in terms of booking a safari, you can be safe that you're with a private guide that knows Johannesburg and has grown up in the bush and knows every guide at the lodges, and will be greeted by his first name as he goes through all those lodges, because we've worked at many of them, in Cape Town, all over South Africa and beyond. But also it's kind of a lot of guests are fearful of coming to Africa because you think, mainstream media paints this picture of famine and doom and gloom and wars and militias and hunger and disease. That's really the image a lot of people have in their minds. And then you get to Cape Town, or parts of Johannesburg, or anywhere, Victoria Falls, Nairobi, Kigali, and you realize, wow, you could be anywhere in Europe. The restaurants, it's safe, it's, everything works, trains, airplanes, everyone's friendly, everyone speaks English, and you go, wow, okay, it's not what it seemed. So we love to share that journey with our clients, and we live in those cities, so we host them to dinners in our homes, and they meet our parents, they meet our pets. That's very personal.
It's so fun. Okay, so what's the website where people can go and find more and book their private safari with you guys? And are they able to pick one of you and be like, I want to go on a tour with this guy or that guy?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website it's tmac.mu.
Okay, say that again. Sorry. TMAC.
TMAC.mu for the Malcolm Ainskoff collection. And yeah, on the website, go to the contact page. There's an email address there or a form. You send that through to us, and we'll get in touch. And we always like to do, as I said, this face-to-face, where we want to meet the client. We want to understand who you are and what your expectations are. We don't sell these package trips. But we're also on Instagram under TMAC Safaris. That's the other one where you can go. And we just post kind of what is happening on the ground as the guides are traveling throughout the continent and what's happening. The seasons change. What's dry in one area is, green season in another. So there's always something different. And use it as a bit of an inspiration to kind of say, wow, I want to experience that.
Yeah. And we know what's really good because we're all based on the ground. And, I've lived in those lodges for my entire 20s and guided, and Jonathan also for much of his 20s. And, we know the managers, we know the staff, we know the areas when the floods into the Okavango Delta are really, really voluminous. We'll know about it and we'll be punting those areas if some lodges are doing particularly well because the staff aren't happy. We know that. All of these minor intricacies, as well as knowing the guides on the ground, because not every trip requires a private guide. I'll accompany my clients all over Africa. We also film and photograph and provide all of that content to our clients so that they can really just immerse themselves in the moment and not be behind a lens. And we'll make these video clips for them to commemorate their whole trip as a gift, and photo books and all those kind of extras that a private guide offers, and handling gratuities and all meals and taking all of that. So you really, with your family, can just immerse yourself in it. But we also do fully independent travel where the majority of clients, if you came with a partner or your child or, just two of you or three of you or four of you, and you didn't need a private guide particularly, then you would travel on your own and would curate that itinerary, handpick each guide at each lodge, because we know them also so well, handpick the lodges that fit into your budget. Everything's very personal. And then have VIP meet and greets at every airport so that you travel seamlessly through Africa, and you'll have a 24-hour line to call us anytime if you've got a problem. It's like fully handheld, curated, never a moment on your own. And we'll, of course, host you for dinner in Cape Town or Johannesburg. Yeah, it's that kind of business.
We're
All
very,
right. So go on
very
African
personal.
Safari and call these people. Oh my God, I can't wait to go. I got to convince your uncle to like invite me when I'm at your event tomorrow. Please let me do all the social media shit. Yeah.
Twist and rubber arm. You'll definitely.
Yes. Yeah. I think you will. We'll try work our magic on Malcolm. But yeah, that's the website. Otherwise, you can follow our personal social media feeds too. Mine's pretty much just safaris. So as Jono's,
Well, mine's safaris and dogs.
Safaris, dogs.
We love animals.
And that'll give you a good idea into what we do all year. I mean, I'm on safari from April through October. Just finished my last one. Then we do these big US trips late in the year and early next year. And then our season starts again because it corresponds with your summer months, our winter months. So April through October, we're away guiding safaris all over Africa, from Rwanda to Cape Town and everything in between. And then, rest of the year, we're out here selling.
Okay, wonderful. And then what are your individual, before we wrap up, your individual Instagrams if they want to follow you guys and be like, that's the guide I want, or,
Yeah.
You go first, John.
Mine is Instagram is very easy. John_Daniel_Dunn, DUNN. John Daniel Dunn with the underscores in between.
With John.
And then
John.
John_Daniel_Dunn. And I'm very active on there with stories because I'm traveling so much. I find a story very ephemeral. I used to post a lot, but a story, you put it up there, you can go, you're with your clients, because I mean, it's so full on. We join our clients for every meal if it's that kind of group, but so you're hosting and as you go, you post these stories. So when I'm on safari, I'm very active with that. Now it'll be for the US. And then Facebook is John Daniel Dunn also. Imagine that. Very different.
What about
John Daniel Dunn.
So that's Jonathan. Now, John, what's yours?
So my Instagram handle is thatzimbo. So it's THAT, that, and then Zimbo, ZIMBO, that's Zimbo. Just because I was born in Zimbabwe, it's kind of like one of those email addresses you created with Hotmail back in the 90s that you didn't really want to share. I've kind of just kept that. And then, also very active on Facebook as well under Jonathan Ainskoff. So Instagram and Facebook are kind of the two mediums that we really like to use because, again, it's quite personal in that regard. And please send us messages, ask us. It's not always about the sale, but if sometimes people just want to know more about the continent, we're more than happy to share.
Yeah, it's always like even just a Zoom for information. And we're not hard sellers. When we come and do these trips too, I'll be presenting, I've just done a presentation in Seattle from here to Washington. We present, we talk like this, we show them pictures, videos, past trips, what it's all about, what the costs are, relative to other holidays. But also I must add before closing, it's such, for families particularly and groups, you touched on it. We live these hectic. I watched the streets of New York today, and I mean, we're busy like that in Johannesburg too. Everyone's rushing. It's really a rat race. It's that way. It's this way. Everyone, manic, pandemonium, horns and police sirens, and it's just we're in this matrix, if you call it that, and it's mad. And you don't get very much time to share things with your loved ones or friends or family or parents. And a safari slows it all down. Yeah. You're on that vehicle for like up to 8 hours a day, 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the evening, where there's nothing else to do but sit next to each other and talk and reconnect and talk about that animal and share these incredible experiences. Wow, there's a leopard. And wow, look at how close it came. The lion's roaring at us.
Yeah.
It's such a bonding vacation for families and friends and with your parents. It's really, really special in that way. Because it creates this space, much like a round of golf, where you're on this vehicle and it's a self-contained unit and you're having this magical time driving through the African wilderness, but at the same time, you're reconnecting with your mum or with your daughter or with whatever, whomever's on that vehicle.
I love it. Okay, you guys, we have to wrap up, but this was amazing. I learned more about Africa. I loved the individual takes. I'm fascinated with the tribes now. Like I was all about lions, tigers, and hippos, and now I'm like, wait, the tribes. I gotta see this. Just absolutely amazing. So I thank you guys both so much for coming on. You guys, if you're looking for an African safari to change your life, to slow down and realize what life is actually about, definitely check these guys out and they will change your life. I haven't been, and I am going to beg and plead them to be like, let me go, because I'm going to go alone. Gonna be great. All right, you guys, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's listening, wherever you are. We will see you next time to find out who's next. Good night.